Do you want more control over your tax and IRS situation? Do you want to pay less taxes without getting into trouble? Do you want to feel confident in dealing with the IRS? Well, I want to expose to as many people as possible what is most often kept a secret. Hi, I'm Joe Mastriano, CPA, and after 37 years and thousands of successful tax cases, I don't know anyone with more IRS experience and knowledge than I have. And I created this video to warn people that over 90% of you fall victim to the IRS and to representatives each and every year. So there's some basic things that we all need to know to avoid being a victim. And I want to share them with you for free. Watch this video if you want to avoid an audit. If you want to avoid an IRS levy, to protect yourself in an audit, settle for less taxes, or handle basically any IRS issue that comes up. Over 90% of tax returns I look at are audits waiting to happen. With that in mind, oh, one more thing. I'm bad about looking into the camera, so please excuse any lack of eye contact. This video is to establish a credible relationship between us by giving you some benefit that'll make a difference in how you approach your tax and IRS matters. So let's go. The first thing to know is how to deal with the IRS in the first place. There are stop codes that need to be posted on transcripts, your business and personal, that the IRS keeps. The IRS keeps account transcripts on people. And if you have a balance on those transcripts showing that you owe money, right or wrong, there's really nothing stopping the IRS from taking collection action against you. Your bank account, your paycheck, your social security, anything that they can find. So our job as taxpayers is to contact the IRS and get a deadline date and make sure that they put that date on each transcript that shows there's a balance. Gets a little complicated. Now, what people don't understand is they'll call the IRS and somebody will tell them something. Oh, well, you have a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, and they mistakenly believe that their whole account is on hold. And over the years, I've had people come to me after paying people for professional help, and they wondered why their bank account or paycheck was levied. And it's because of what I'm saying now, that these hold codes are not handled and managed properly by the people who are, the taxpayers or their representatives who are asking for them. So it's essential that you manage your transcripts with the IRS and you don't just let somebody at the IRS tell you something and you write their name and number down and you say, well, this person told me this. You have to take a very proactive approach. Now, I do consultations for only $300 that'll teach you in detail how to manage your transcripts and, well, basically resolve any problem you have. So there's a lot more I need to tell you. Just never assume that you know what's on your transcripts unless you see a copy or someone tells you specifically what they're reading directly from the transcripts. It's these assumptions that taxpayers make that the IRS is taking care of them or their representative is taking care of them without knowing the facts. Number two, over 90% of you get audited for failing to do 4 things that I will reference. There's a specific time to file, and it's not April 15th. There's transcripts to review, not the account transcripts, they're different transcripts that match what the IRS has on you, and that needs to be on the return. There's statements that go on the return. This is the big one. This is what I barely see, whether your tax return is prepared by a CPA firm or someone that's been doing it for the last 20 years or by you. In fact, the um, what is it? The electronic filing of returns discourages that. It doesn't allow you to attach separate statements. And it's essential that things on the returns get described properly. There's um, itemized deductions, there's Schedule C, self-employment businesses, people use their vehicles, people have entertainment expenses, and if you don't put the right statements down, these auditors pull returns and they rub their hands and they're like, man, I'm going to get money from this one, I'm going to get money from that one. And to this day, whenever my 4 parts were followed, I don't know one person that has gotten audited. And no one's ever told me that they followed these 4 parts and were audited. Anyone who did was not audited, plain and simple. So fire your tax preparer, even if it's you, if they don't follow these things. Anybody, I'll teach you. You can just get a free tax act or TurboTax program, put your W-2 in, some itemized deductions, check the alerts, be done with the return. You have a better chance of completing with my rules a return to avoid an audit than you do paying over 90% of the people that you'll actually give money to who will foul you up. And later on, some of you become my client because we represent several tax preparation companies and their clients in audits because they were more concerned about getting a bigger refund than understanding how to protect you from being audited. So how do you win your audit? Well, many people mistakenly believe, including some tax preparers that I've come across, that all you have to do is give the IRS your receipts. And I've seen many people over the years that had their deductions kicked out when all they had was their receipts. You see, the IRS requires proof concerning particular rules. In fact, I personally believe and have experienced over the years that each income and expense item has nuances to them that need to be addressed to win the audit. And you have to know what they are. There's things about self-employment returns that require an additional, stronger burden of proof. There's itemized deductions, employee business expenses that most preparers don't understand what the IRS requires, and they lose their deductions. And what I'm telling you is you have to have a much greater understanding about your return, or at least go to somebody who has a lot of audit experience and understands how to audit proof your return. And I'm not talking about the 10 red flags each year you read in the newspaper. I'm talking about my 4 ways: not filing by April 15th for one, get out of that audit risk pool, and matching what the IRS has on you, and understanding what explanations will keep the auditors away from you. Very critical. You see, many tax preparers fail because anyone can prepare a tax return. I can give you information on the internet, free courses. You can get like I said, you can download a free tax program, clear the alerts, and it has nothing to do with your ability to meet the IRS's requirements for proof. That requires experience or me educating you on those items and how to look them up. And to get a greater understanding, the IRS also has audit guides. So when you do a tax return or review your tax return, you need to understand, look at the big numbers and say, well, what do I have for proof? And does that match what the IRS requires for proof? And if it doesn't, then I'd be very, very concerned. We represent attorneys and CPAs and tax preparation firms before the IRS. And you don't want to risk getting a huge bill from the IRS because you trusted your preparer who created that big refund or lowered your taxes considerably. And what these people do to further hurt you is that you get an audit letter and you run to your tax preparer and he looks at it and contacts the IRS and shows them what you have, and it's very hard to go backwards and say, oh, no, 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 this was the situation. Once they get an idea of your situation, it's very, very hard to change it. I've been able to change it for people, but it's very hard to do. So if you get a letter from the IRS, there's particular procedures that I educate you on that you need to follow. And actually, I often say, don't contact them right away. Get your whole story together, evidence, pull the transcripts. There's a bunch of preliminary work that you could do on your own, too, that has to be done first. Now, how would you like to settle for less? Many offers in compromise, that's the IRS's program. Their collection officers are not really given authority to, if you pay it all now, will they take off the penalties and interest? No, they're not supposed to do that. There are provisions for penalty removal, often under the first time penalty abatement, which you can look up also. But the offer in compromise division follows a formula for what they'll settle for. And I've changed many people's living situations, all legitimate, and I've helped them settle for less. So these people that fill out the forms, you go to your preparer and he says, oh, I'll file an offer for you. And they fill out the offer form and send it in. And suddenly the IRS knows your whole situation and they turn it down, or they want you to pay 90% of the tax liability. How are we going to reverse that? It's better to change your situation so that when you sign the form on the penalties of perjury, you're signing what's true and correct, but you've already fixed the situation such that the IRS will accept it for a much more reasonable amount. And it goes for if you have a corporation too. I've seen so many accountants try to do an offer in compromise on a corporation when I just do a corporate dissolution and operate under another entity, and it's so much easier and it saves you so much more money. Again, knowledge is key, experience is key in this business. You don't want someone who reads the IRS instructions or takes some kind of course on, National Association of the, best IRS representatives in the world, and they put a symbol on their website. These are non-accredited designations. The IRS doesn't recognize them. They're not accredited colleges or anything. The IRS only recognizes a CPA, an enrolled agent, or an attorney. And if you're not one of those, unless you have your client on the phone with you, you can't represent your taxpayer. So everything else is peripheral. Okay, how to get adjustments from the IRS. It's very important to know that the IRS departments work very independently. Collections must always be stopped with deadlines. So forget what the employees told you over the phone. Forget the letters you get. People get letters saying, this is a letter to acknowledge that you're in a payment plan and you're supposed to pay $500 a month by the 15th. Well, that just means you've been set up administratively. Doesn't mean you're in an agreement. Transcripts of periods that are in an agreement need particular codes on them, agreement codes. So the goal when you have liabilities on your transcripts is to tie them up either with an extension, like 30 days, that's put on the transcript, or agreement codes saying you're in an agreement. And man, I've seen hundreds of people over the years feel like they're in an installment agreement, claim they made their payment every month, and they're wondering why their paycheck or bank account was just levied. Well, there's things you have to do to stay in the agreement. They're not told to you by the IRS. You don't find them readily in any printed information. You get treated as a different class of taxpayer, let's say. And if you don't know what those items are, it's very easy to break them. It's very easy to say, well, file on time, pay on time, make your monthly payment on time. But for example, your monthly payment has to be logged into your transcript by the due date, not postmarked. And that throws a lot of people off too. So bank and wage levies happen daily, even though it's easy to prevent, and I can educate you on preventing them. Now, once collections is tied up, then you must aggressively stay on top of what other department is handling your case. Perhaps it's an offer. You can't assume that you filed an offer so it stops collections because this manual said it does. The offer division has to contact collections, and they could sit on it and ask you for documents, and you think they're considering your offer, and they're really not, because it hasn't been assigned to an office specialist yet. And collections will go after you, and you'll be wondering why your bank account or paycheck was levied when you have an offer you think is in process, and you'll find out it's not in process, it's in a preliminary secretarial stage. So this is very critical stuff that I want everybody to know, because I've seen over the years, over the last 37 years, I've watched people hire people, these debt relief companies. It's crazy that don't have a clue about this stuff. They just want to quickly fill out a form and throw it at the IRS. And I can understand. I know their salespeople get paid up to 30% of your money, so there's no money left over to take care of your particular case. So, and even if you go to the taxpayer advocate, appeals, the collection manager, you can't just sit back and leave it up to them. You have to take a proactive approach, because anything can happen. You have to manage and steer the case. So I have so much to tell you and warn you about. And these IRS and tax representatives prey on your fear for lack of knowledge. And I want you to know, dealing with the IRS is not just filling out forms. Yeah, I get emails from people, well, how do I fill out the innocent spouse form? I mean, that's the most dangerous thing in that particular case to do, without understanding what the rules are, without understanding they're going to contact your ex and ask that person questions about your spending habits. And I've seen dozens of people attempt to file an offer and compromise innocent spouse just by filling out the forms. They've even paid money to people who just filled out the forms, and they lost their case. You've got to understand what the IRS does when they get your information if you plan to win. Now, for the final part, people have limiting beliefs, such as if your problem is very big and it may involve a criminal act, people are falsely led to believe that you have to hire a law firm. And don't fall for it. Only twice in my career did I ever have to refer someone to a law firm. If criminal investigations is pursuing a case against you and won't stop, you need a criminal attorney, not a tax attorney who handles criminal matters. Don't fall for the confidential information scam that many attorneys play. We as CPAs are not going to rat on you. Things are confidential too. And it never really comes up. So let me show you how to be effective against the IRS. More than 99% of the attorneys you'll ever meet If you're looking to hire someone to represent you before the IRS, I urge you to talk to me. Our fees are very reasonable. We don't train junior staff or use secretaries to do your work. Most law firms and debt relief companies use secretaries. Their licensed professional that's supposed to handle your case from start to finish doesn't. They just get on the phone to talk to the IRS or talk to you and act like, yeah, I'm handling the case. No, you're not. We don't use salespeople. As I said, debt relief companies use salespeople who get paid up to 30% of your money. At a minimum, if you intend to represent yourself or use a friend to help you or use a discount service, you need the knowledge that I can provide you in my $300 paid consultation so that you know exactly how to approach the IRS and win. And I want you to win. So call me now, 713-774-4467, and let's not be in the dark anymore concerning your taxes and the IRS. Thank you.